The moon hung low above Neverland, casting long silver paths across the jungle. Peter Pan sat alone on the cliff, overlooking Lagoon Bay, his knees pulled tightly to his chest. Beside him, Tinker Bell floated, her usual bright glow now faint and tinged with worry. "It's getting worse, isn't it?" She chimed softly, her tiny voice filled with concern. Peter glanced down at the rock. His shadow flickered, then suddenly, it moved the wrong way. He lifted his hand, but the shadow lagged behind, as if it had a will of its own, reluctant to follow. A chilling realization washed over him. He whispered, his voice barely audible, "It's not mine anymore." Morning sunlight streamed through the canopy, but it did little to lift the strange mood. Wendy, John, Michael, and the lost boys were gathered in a clearing when Slightly pointed a trembling finger toward the ground. "Peter, your shadow's gone again." Everyone froze. And there it was, at the very edge of the clearing, dancing with an almost playful wave before it darted deeper into the dense trees. Peter jumped to his feet, a spark of adventure in his eyes despite the unease. "It's leading us somewhere." John, ever the cautious one, frowned. "Or luring us somewhere." Peter just grinned, that familiar reckless grin. Same thing. They plunged into the forest, following the fleeting silhouette. The path led them through tunnels of glowing vines and past trees that seemed to whisper secrets on the breeze. Deeper and deeper they went, until they found themselves at the entrance to Neverland's heart caves, an underground labyrinth filled with colossal crystals that pulsed with a mysterious blue light. Michael clutched Wendy's hand, his small fingers cold. "It feels cold here," he murmured. Wendy nodded, her gaze sweeping over the shimmering walls. "Like something's missing." As they ventured further into the cavern, the crystals began to shimmer more intensely, and in each faceted reflection, they saw their own shadows, moving, stretching, almost dancing on their own. The Lost Boys started laughing nervously, waving at their shadowy twins, but then the laughter died. One of the shadows didn't wave back. Slightly, his curiosity getting the better of him, stepped closer to the crystal wall. "Hey," he began, but his word was cut short as the shadow on the wall lunged forward, its dark hand grabbing him. Panic erupted. In an instant, shadows began to peel themselves from the crystal walls, swirling around the group like sentient smoke. Peter drew his dagger, its blade a sliver of light in the gloom, and slashed through the shadowy forms. But each cut only seemed to multiply them, making more spring forth from the walls. "They're not attacking us, they're copying us." Wendy shouted, her voice echoing in the vast cave. John, his eyes fixed on the reflections, suddenly understood. "They react to light. If we change the light, we change the shadows." Hearing this, Tinker Bell shot upward like a golden rocket. She flared her light, growing brighter and brighter until the entire cavern was flooded with a warm, brilliant gold. The rogue shadows shrieked and recoiled, shrinking back and melting into the cracks in the rock. But one remained, Peter's shadow. It stood perfectly still, unervingly solid, and stared directly at him. Then it spoke in Peter's own voice, but hollow, empty. "You left me behind," it said, "when you chose not to grow up." Peter froze, his dagger feeling heavy in his hand. "You're me." The shadow tilted its head, a perfect imitation of Peter's own mannerism. "I was. Now I belong to Hook." With that, the shadow extended a dark, featureless hand, and the very ground beneath their feet cracked and split open. From the gaping abyss rose Captain Hook himself, his crimson coat a splash of blood against the cool blue light of the crystals. He smirked, his eyes glinting with triumph. "Ah, Pan, you've come to collect what's missing?" Peter raised his dagger, his knuckles white. "You'll never own me." Hook's smirk widened into a cruel smile. "Don't flatter yourself. I don't need to own you. I only need you divided." He twisted the face of his strange glowing compass. Instantly, Peter's shadow roared to life. expanding, growing larger, darker, and more monstrous, a towering silhouette with eyes that burned like embers. A roaring wind filled the cave, whipping at their clothes. Peter didn't hesitate. He leaped forward, his glowing dagger clashing with his own monstrous shadow in a flurry of light and darkness. But every strike he landed on the shadow echoed back onto himself, a sharp jolt of pain, as if he were fighting a mirror that could fight back. From his perch above the chasm, Hook laughed, his voice booming. "See? You're your own worst enemy, boy." Wendy, her mind racing, ran to the exhausted Tinker Bell. "Can you make it brighter?" Tink shook her head, her light flickering weakly. "Too much?" "Shadow magic." Wendy's desperate gaze fell upon the giant glowing crystals. An idea sparked. She spun around and shouted to the others. Everyone aim the crystals at the ceiling. The Lost Boys, understanding immediately, put their shoulders to the largest crystals, pushing and tilting them. They focused the remaining light upward, merging it into a single massive beam that struck the roof of the cave. The beam shattered, scattering into hundreds of smaller rays, bathing the entire chamber in pure golden light. The shadow creature screamed, a sound of tearing fabric and breaking glass, flickering wildly as the intense light burned it. Peter, panting and bruised, looked at Wendy, who gave him a determined nod. "Now!" she cried. She threw her last handful of fairy dust, a gift from Tink, directly into the brilliant beam. The golden light didn't just shine. It exploded, a silent, concussive wave of purity that washed over everything. When the blinding glow finally faded, the monstrous shadow was gone. Only Peter remained, kneeling on the stone floor, trembling, his dagger buried in the ground beside him. Wendy rushed to his side. "Are you okay?" He nodded slowly, taking a deep, shaky breath. "I think so." But as he looked down at his feet, his heart sank. His shadow was still missing. He whispered, the terrible truth dawning on him. It didn't vanish. It escaped. Far away, deep beneath the ocean's surface, Captain Hook stood inside his dark submarine. He faced a wall of polished black glass, a makeshift mirror. Within its depths, Peter's shadow appeared, whole and distinct, now completely under his control. A thin, cruel smile touched Hook's lips. "At last," he murmured. "A weapon made of what Pan fears most himself?" The shadow's eyes glowed faintly in the dark, and it repeated Hook's final word like a distorted echo. "Himself, himself." Hook turned toward the submarine's viewport, where the deep sea shimmered like obsidian. "Now, my dear boy," he said to the darkness, "let's see how well you fight when the light refuses to follow." What a cliffhanger. Hook now has the ultimate weapon against Peter Pan. The battle for Neverland just got a whole lot darker. What do you think will happen next? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this dark twist on a classic tale, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next thrilling episode. Thanks for watching.